A high school student received hundreds of cruel messages from a mysterious sender. What investigators uncovered left a community stunned. This is the Lauryn Licari story. Hi, Amy.
I think I know what case this is, and I did not watch the documentary.
Oh, good, you didn't. Okay,
Yeah, no,
I told you not to, and I was just hoping you wouldn't. But we received a lot of messages about this case, and probably because it was just recently featured in a Netflix documentary. Even before I received the messages, though, I had watched the documentary.
Oh,
and
you
I
did?
Oh, yeah. I watch a lot of documentaries.
That I know.
I watch more TV than you too. I do. I don't know how. It's always like at nighttime, when I'm like getting ready.
I don't. I'd rather go to sleep.
I know. That's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being is that I had watched it and I knew I was going to cover it for an episode. And I'll reference the documentary at the end of our episode. But for now, suffice it to say that this case involves catfishing and unfortunate anonymity that technology affords those who commit crimes of stalking and harassment. We're going to address these issues and many more in our discussion. But for now, let me introduce Lauryn Licari. At the time of events we'll discuss today, Lauryn Licari was 13 years old and lived in Beale City, Michigan. Lauryn's hometown is one of those small, quiet communities where Friday night basketball games and church potlucks still anchor the rhythm of life. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your business. And everyone knew Lauryn, describing her as bright, athletic, and well-liked, the kind of student teachers remembered for her smile and her hustle on the basketball court. Lauryn was a typical 13-year-old girl in many ways, and in that regard, she had recently started dating a classmate she'd been friends with for a while by the name of Owen McKenney. Their relationship was typical for middle school, right? Texts, hallway glances, sporting events, and hanging out with each other in their families' homes. Through the teens' budding relationship, Lauryn's parents, Kendra and Sean, became really good friends as well with Owen's parents, Jill and Dave. And even if the young couple had the occasional teenage drama, it was nothing that could have prepared their families for what was coming. It started with one message on Halloween of 2020. Lauryn was getting ready to go to a Halloween party hosted by one of Owen's friends, Chloe Wilson, who played with Lauryn on the basketball team. But before the party, Lauryn received an anonymous text message citing that Owen was breaking up with her and that he, quote, no longer likes you. It's obvious he wants me.
Who was it? It was anonymous, you said. So it's a number she didn't know, obviously.
It was a number she didn't recognize. And I mean, obviously, Owen was like, it's nothing. It's nobody. But over the next several weeks, really, and then months, the unknown number sent Lauryn tons of texts, calling her nasty, derogatory names, claiming that Owen was cheating on her and that she was worthless. Owen continued to claim that this was completely untrue, and Lauryn had no reason to doubt him. He had always been genuine. They had a good relationship, and, she believed him. But the text just didn't stop.
I mean, this is 2020. Can't she look up the number? Or
they were coming from like burner phones, unknown numbers. They couldn't be traced, but we will get to that. Yeah. And the text did not stop. The messages about Lauryn's appearance were especially cruel. I'll just give you an example. I'm not going to go through all of them, but one said, "Effin' trash bitch, don't effin' wear leggings. Ain't no one want to see your anorexic flat ass." I mean, nasty, really nasty messages. And Lauryn's parents were furious as the messages kept coming and they couldn't seem to locate the source, and that was the problem. And it was really tough on them also to watch as their once confident daughter began to question her appearance, even every day questioning what she was wearing to school and how she looked. And I imagine this would be very hard for a parent to watch.
Were these text messages threatening at all?
Not threatening harm directly, but they did escalate in a way that they were trying to bully her into self-harm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like there were messages that were reached that level, which I think I get to later, but remind me and I'll come back to that. By December of 2020, the constant barrage was taking a serious toll on Lauryn's mental health. though her mother encouraged her to ignore these ugly messages, reassuring her that she was a beautiful girl and that these words couldn't harm her or undo who she was. But, I mean, honestly, it was so many. And Amy, by 2021, this is still going on over a year later. And the messages had escalated, hundreds of them. And it was no longer just text. They were coming in through social media DMs and apps specifically designed to mask the sender's identity.
Did they go to the police at all?
Yeah, I'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
The content was really just so vicious. Things like, you're disgusting. Everyone knows what you did. You should just die. That's what I meant, like, you should die, implying self-harm. You're worthless and mean nothing. There was also very explicit sexual messaging, with the sender describing sexual acts between themselves and Owen. Yeah, I mean, very explicit things that you certainly don't want your 13, 14-year-old sending or reading. And the sender was also targeting Owen. He was receiving similar messages, and as well as some of their mutual friends. So this was really extensive. And Amy, there were insidious details in them, referencing private conversations, inside jokes, things that only someone close or in the inside would know, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In watching the documentary, some of these kids, they started to talk amongst themselves, like, who was here when we had this conversation? They were trying to figure out who could be doing this. Owen was so bombarded with messages that his parents took away his phone for some time so that he wouldn't be exposed to this harassment, because it was very overwhelming. And the fallout from all of this was huge. The messages about Owen cheating put a huge strain on these two kids. They started dating at 13, and they're 14, and by the time they're 15, I think about 15, they were fighting a lot. It was just too much. Even if Lauryn believed Owen in the beginning, she came to doubt it because of how much she was exposed to. And so they called it quits after 2 years of dating and a long friendship. They actually hoped by breaking up that the harassment campaign would stop. But if anything, it only got worse. Lauryn's grades started to slip, and she withdrew from friends, and her parents were becoming frantic. But who could hate their daughter this much? By late 2021, the harassment was impossible to ignore. Lauryn and Owen's parents contacted Beale City High School, united in their demand that the school do something. One demand was that the school confiscate the students' phones. But the principal said that that really wasn't an option that they could pursue.
I mean, there's privacy laws. You can't just do that, right?
Right. And so I think, if I remember, the basketball coach was willing to go this route, and then the principal said, no, we have to handle this more officially. Mm-hmm. And also, it's kind of interesting, too, because they're just assuming that it's a student on those school grounds. Mm-hmm. Possible that it's not. So I do understand why the principal wasn't willing to confiscate phones and get in trouble, but they were willing to look for more official help. The school looped in local law enforcement, and Sheriff Mike Main took the lead on the investigation. And he had some suspects in mind. Now, I believe also that Lauryn's parents and Owen's parents had sought help from law enforcement as well. Mm-hmm. I think now with the escalation of this, I think at one point, too, law enforcement had suggested, like, change your phone numbers. And I know Owen's mom said that they did that, and maybe even Lauryn's, but that the messages just kept coming. And it had gotten so bad, they were at a point where they were afraid of the person who was sending the messages, so they wanted to figure out who it was. Mm-hmm. So, like, stopping the messages now, I think it was Owen's mom said, might have put them all in danger. Mm-hmm. So when Sheriff Mike Main took over, he had some suspects in mind. His suspicion fell on two of Lauryn's classmates, Chloe Wilson and a girl named Adriana. As I mentioned earlier, Chloe hosted the Halloween party on the night that Lauryn received that first message. Do you recall that, Amy?
Yep.
Okay. Despite them being basketball teammates, Chloe and Lauryn didn't exactly mesh. But Owen was very close to Chloe, which was a touchy subject in Lauryn and Owen's relationship. I think that Chloe and Owen might have liked each other a little bit as well. So it caused a little bit of a problem.
It's hard when you say Chloe, I just picture your dog.
I know.
And then I think Coco, because that's what Hannah
says,
Chloe.
Coco. Well, she started saying, actually, she started saying Coe now.
Oh, Coe.
Coe.
Okay, we're getting closer.
Yeah. And then the other day it was Cocoli or something. It's really cute. Sorry. All right. So Chloe, not our Chloe Wilson, had a bit of a reputation for bullying. While she and her parents, who participated in the documentary, simply described her as a strong personality and a leader, people took her for a bully. There were several accusations from other students that she did bully them. So I just want to say, I'm not taking a side on this issue. Conflicting information. She does admit in the documentary, though, she's a strong personality, and you can tell. Sheriff Mayne honed in on Chloe first since several of the nasty texts referenced game scoring points from basketball. And some of these messages were also traced to a Florida area code where Chloe was vacationing with her parents at the time the messages came in.
Okay.
So, some indications. The rumors blaming Chloe for the harassment campaign, though, became so prevalent, and Chloe was adamantly denied it, that her father directed her to give her phone over to the police for a phone dump, which she did. But Chloe also insisted that she believed she was being framed by a girl at school named Adriana. This was Owen's cousin.
This is quite the high school drama right now.
It really is. I'm so glad that we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
Adriana was a person who claimed that she had been bullied by Chloe and maybe her friends as well in high school. However, there looked like there might have been some evidence to support Chloe's claim about Adriana, as Adriana had been at Owen's home for Christmas in 2020, and some of the messages Lauryn received had come with pictures taken at that holiday event. Unfortunately, there were a lot of people. I think it was one of those houses where family, friends were welcome, but it did seem to possibly point to someone there and possibly Adriana. So the police spoke with her as well. She was confused and scared in her interview, saying that not only did she have nothing against Lauryn and that she certainly had not sent any messages or photos, but she claimed that she'd also gotten a message from the anonymous texter. And she wasn't the only one. After Owen started dating a new girlfriend from another county, she began to receive the same nasty texts that Lauryn had gotten.
So Owen's the common denominator here.
Seems like Owen might be, right? Owen was shocked and scared. He could not believe that this was happening again. But he was also unwilling to subject another girl to this kind of abuse, so he ended the relationship pretty quickly. Very mature, actually, for a 15-year-old, if you ask me.
And the messages stopped after that?
The messages did not stop.
I meant to the girl that he broke up with.
From what I understand, they did stop to her. But they didn't stop to Lauryn and other people in her group. And the sender was getting smarter now, using VPNs, encrypted apps, and burner accounts. So whoever was behind this wasn't just cruel. They were careful and technologically advanced. I was just saying, this is why I could never cyberstalk anyone, because I have no technological skills whatsoever. Local law enforcement felt, though, that this was getting beyond the resources that they had to track the perpetrator. So they did what sometimes they do, and they called in the FBI. Agent Bradley Peter joined the investigation, bringing a team of digital forensics agents who traced IP addresses, cross-referenced device IDs, and analyzed message metadata. So this is a slow, time-consuming thing. Does not happen quickly, because even if you're getting this information, you have to sit down with lists and cross-reference them. But a meticulous review of every number used by the sender's IP address, which is an individual number assigned to every cell phone and laptop, eventually revealed one match. And this was the break they were waiting for. But I don't think anyone expected the person it turned out to be. In December of 2022, the FBI had finally identified Lauryn Licari's cyberstalker. Amy, who do you think it was?
Lauryn herself?
Ooh.
I mean, we covered a case like that.
That is a good guess, but wrong.
Owen would be too obvious.
Yep.
Oh, I think I know.
The records revealed.
The mother.
Yes.
Lauryn's mother.
The records revealed that it was Lauryn's own mother, Kendra.
There was another case that this happened, and then like a murder happened as well because of the catfish of a teenage daughter that you covered.
Yes. Mary Sheeler was using her daughter. She was using her identity, and she got involved with 2 other men, and one of the men...
Men or boys?
No.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different one.
They were, they were men, one younger, one older, but one of them killed the other one in this love triangle. And she was impersonating her daughter in that one, using her photos and her identity.
Unbelievable. Okay, so I can't wait to hear this motive or...
I know, and I think this is why people really wanted to, cover this. But let's get to how they figured this out. The messages had been traced to a device inside Lauren's home. Specifically, they traced it to Kendra's phone. The documentary showed the footage of their initial approach, confronting Kendra outside the Licari home. This is so interesting to watch. Agents asked to speak with an unsuspecting Kendra, and moments later, the police presented her with a search warrant. Now, at first, she denies having anything to do with this, but the evidence was overwhelming. There were over 350,000 messages that had been sent from her IP address.
Whoa.
Yes.
Because it was 2 years, 3 years?
It was about a year and a half.
Okay.
Close to 2 years. Some of these messages had been sent from her phone, while others had been sent from devices she had access to. And you can see in the documentary that I know you're going to watch, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have watched, that she confessed pretty quickly. She had cyberstalked her own daughter for close to 2 years. She had created fake accounts, used anonymizing tools, and sent messages designed to isolate and torment Lauren.
So confused. Okay. I'm assuming we're going to talk about why.
Yeah, certainly. The documentary also showed footage of the police inviting Lauren into the room to find out who her harasser was. So you watch Lauren sit with Kendra hugging her daughter tightly while the police explain that her mother was the one sending her these messages.
I'm assuming she didn't believe it at first.
She looks scared and somewhat confused, like perhaps she didn't quite process it. But then the police also called Lauren's father. So they needed to get him involved. They needed to see if he was involved, but they also needed to get him home. And by the way, I think the police, I don't think they were trying to make things worse for Kendra or Lauren by telling Lauren, but they were going to have to search the house. Kendra had already admitted this, and I think they were actually offering to help her. Like, how is she going to tell her daughter this? I think they were trying to help. Anyway, Lauren's father, Sean, was shocked as the police explained that not only was his wife their daughter's tormentor, but that Kendra also had been fired from her job over a year prior, and she never told him. She pretended like she was going to work, or she was working remotely.
Wow.
As he demanded Kendra leave immediately, it became clear that Lauren, crying and hugging her mom, still began to understand what was going on. Oh, I thought it was so heartbreaking. Her mother had done this to her, but why? And that was the lingering question.
Was she apologetic at the time?
Not exactly. She wasn't saying much. She was just hugging her daughter and holding her and saying, I can't leave Lauren. I can't leave Lauren. But I didn't hear apologetic. Okay. No. No one at the time could honestly understand the motives here. And obviously, this is the big question. Kendra's cousin gave an interview on the documentary and said that while Kendra definitely liked attention, she was also a helpful, good person. But despite how her family felt about who she really was, Kendra was charged with stalking a minor and obstruction of justice. In March 2023, Kendra Licari accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to 2 counts of stalking, with the other charges dropped. Kendra apologized tearfully to everyone, citing childhood trauma that led to a mental health crisis as the explanation for her crimes. She was sentenced to 19 months in prison, and in an emotional sentencing hearing, Owen's mom, Jill McKinney, delivered her victim impact statement, expressing the betrayal and pain that Kendra caused her family. When she was called by the police, she interviewed on the documentary, they said, listen, we found a number that seems to come up, and it's Kendra. And she said, absolutely not. It's Lauren's mother, and she's my friend. This is absolutely not her. Imagine the betrayal she felt as well. Owen said in court and on the documentary that he was scarred forever by what happened. Sean Licari divorced Kendra and retained sole custody of Lauryn. Kendra was paroled in August of 2024, but she was ordered to stay away from Lauryn, likely until I'm assuming Lauryn turned 18, which by my math, she turns 18 this year.
Oh.
And Lauryn discussed it. She did stay, she did have some phone calls with her mother from prison, and she's obviously very conflicted. Like, she understands what her mom did was wrong, and she's trying to understand why, but she also said that she loves her mom. She wants the opportunity to reconcile. Actually, she said, quote, "Being without that relationship is really hurting me. I think rebuilding our relationship will help both of us a lot. I love her more than anything."
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I think that Kendra Licari is a very lucky woman that her daughter is such a forgiving person.
Yeah.
And I seriously hope that she appreciates the second chance that she might just be granted by this lovely young woman. I have to tell you, when you watch the documentary, and others do, I think you will see that Lauryn is a lovely person, really, truly. And it made me feel even worse that her mother would do this. So that is the story and where we're at today. And now we turn to the burning question. And that's, why did she do this?
I think the only explanation is biological. There has to be a mental illness. I can't imagine any other explanation.
Well, she never gave a clear motive. She discussed being a victim of a sexual assault when she was 17 and her fears about Lauryn becoming a victim as well. So it was very confusing.
But how would this protect her? If anything, this would harm her more. Like, this was traumatic.
Keeping her away from Owen or keeping her away from dating. I have no idea. It really does not make sense to me. She also claimed, very oddly, and I think she's maintained this, that she was not the person who started the awful messages in the first place. Kendra said that the messages came in from someone else, and in an attempt to find out who was sending these messages, she started getting involved. The police said that they could never trace any message to any other person. So this is clearly a lie, or I would say. Also, what's really interesting about this documentary, and the reason why you won't suspect her mother immediately, she participates in the documentary, which is odd. Kendra.
After she served time.
Yes. After she was released, she participates. So we hear from her in her own words. And I think that she minimizes the behavior.
I was going to say, does she talk about motive at all? Or she
that's what I just said, that she had a trauma, and that she was also trying to help her, and that it wasn't what it was intended to be. When they ask her, like, you told your daughter to, like, die, like, kill herself, right? Like, you said these things to her. Weren't you worried, like, that she might do that? And she was like, no, I never worried that Lauryn would do anything to herself. And I'm like, okay. So prosecutors speculated that jealousy, control, or unresolved psychological issues were the motive here. Some suggested that she wanted to sabotage Lauryn's relationship with Owen, though, because she had feelings for Owen.
What?
Remember that she was texting the new girl that Owen was seeing. So
that's a whole other issue. That's pedophilia.
I know. So this whole other issue comes out, and Owen's mom said it, that Kendra always paid a lot of attention to Owen. Owen talks about one time how it was really weird, or his mom talks about it, how, like, Kendra cut his meat for him, like, on one dinner, and that Kendra still was going to Owen's sporting events after the two broke up, so that there might have been some real interest in Owen here.
Well, it did continue with Owen's new girlfriend, so.
Exactly. So but it also continued with Lauryn. And Lauryn and Owen, when they broke up, never spoke again, which is also very sad.
Yeah.
Their friendship was over. Everything was over. They just distanced, and that was it. So then why would it continue there? Okay. So others believe that possibly Kendra was projecting her own insecurities onto her daughter, and this was a vehicle for her own self-hatred.
I could see that.
Okay. Mental health professionals weighed in, suspecting possible narcissistic traits, emotional instability, and a need for attention.
Yes, that all tracks.
Okay, the truth is, I don't know that we're ever going to fully understand why a mother would torment her own child. What I'm going to do is attempt to give you my opinion, drawing on some of these suggested motives. But even then, let's be clear, this is an educated guess and nothing more. So here's what I think. And I watched the documentary and I did a lot of research for this episode. I think that Kendra is severely emotionally immature. I think that Kendra was very dissatisfied with her life, particularly as Lauren got older and developed her own social life and a cute boyfriend who everyone seemed to like.
Well, she might have liked him too.
Right. Also, Kendra had been very involved in like Lauren's sports and other things. And so she was very close with Lauren. But I think Lauren was doing what normal teenage girls do and having a life, right? I think that Kendra developed an obsession with the life her daughter had and became envious of her own child, wanting what she had. I think she fantasized about being a young girl again with a popular boyfriend and all the excitement that comes with that time of her life. And I think that her crimes were the manifestation of the anger and jealousy of a life that she couldn't have. It was malicious. I think it became an escape from her reality and a very addictive one. Some people have suggested that this is factitious disorder. And again, all of these are possibilities. I really think that she was envious and angry. And I think she was so jealous of her own daughter. And I do think in some level she liked being the one to console Lauren and tell her everything was going to be okay. But I think this is about jealousy. I do.
Just now when you said that, it reminded me of like the nurses who harm patients just so they could be the heroes that, help them.
Well, that's why, it suggested that it's maybe factitious disorder as well. And I do see that as a possibility.
Do you know if she got any mental health treatment while incarcerated, or did she get diagnosed with anything?
I don't know. I didn't see that, to be honest. A lot of people weighed in saying they thought that she had mental health disorders, but I'm not sure what her official diagnosis was. But we've also, this case involves a topic we've covered before, which is catfishing. We've explored catfishing in other previous episodes, but it's been a while, so I'm just going to review a little bit. Also, it just reminded me, when we talk about the cases you always like these cases where there's a question mark of, was it accident, murder, suicide? I think I'm obsessed with catfishing cases.
And love triangles.
And love triangles, yeah. I know. So catfishing is luring a victim online by pretending to be someone else, by creating a fake identity. Now, most catfishing is usually done for fraud purposes and or dating scams, but catfishing is also conducted to facilitate violent crimes. Those who become involved usually suffer from low self-esteem, extreme loneliness or boredom, though there are also people who suffer from serious personality disorders who prey upon victims having no regard or sympathy for the pain they cause. So this case also reminds me of, do you remember Kirat from Sweet Bobby? I covered that case.
Of course. Yep. I thought of that one too. The one who
her cousin.
I was going to say she stalked her cousin, that one.
Right.
Yeah.
And she caused her great pain and trauma. And it was definitely, it reminded me of that. So Kendra's crimes were predatory and they were intended to cause pain to her daughter. And I think the problem was exacerbated by the addictive nature of this type of engagement. In her own words, Kendra said she couldn't stop, that she spent up to 8 hours a day sending messages, which removed her from her everyday life and became all-encompassing.
Did she lose her job because of that behavior, or that behavior enabled her to, or losing her job enabled her to engage in that behavior?
So interesting. That was the question I wanted to know, because of course I was thinking too of like social bond and other things. I looked, and what I saw was that Kendra actually had 2 jobs, and it appears that one she was fired from for performance problems. But performance problems could have been, she was already like addicted to this kind of behavior. And another one, it appears that she quit. So I suspect that she was already immersed in this world. However, losing her job just freed her up. But we also have to look at that as part of her pattern. She lied about this for a year. In the documentary, Sean talks about how they lost their house. They hadn't paid their mortgage. They hadn't done made a lot of payments. And Kendra blamed it on, other factors. And I can't remember what they were. Other financial factors that had nothing to do with her not working and lying about an income.
Wow.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. Really quickly, just back to why the behavior of this catfishing and using devices is so addicting. It allows people to escape from their own loneliness and their own struggles. And it also allows those who feel powerless in their lives to feel powerful over someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Each interaction, especially when the victim responds, can trigger a dopamine release.
Yep. I was thinking dopamine,
Yep.
like, because anything with the phone, anytime you have, responses. So it happens with catfishing all the time.
All the time. Yeah, it's definitely a trigger, and it definitely fuels this digital addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Kendra found a reality outside of her own that allowed her to control several people at a time in her life where she didn't feel like she had a life, where she was losing control of her own life. She could do this under disguise in the shadows. And in those shadows, her crimes harmed and betrayed the trust of the one person that you're supposed to protect at all costs. And that is really the tragedy here. Her daughter. I still, even though I've gone through this many times, I cannot imagine intentionally harming my daughter, who I just want to protect at all costs.
Yeah. And it seems like Lauren's doing very well considering what she's been through.
Yeah.
At least from the outside.
Yeah. Lauren survived. She said that, she's bonded with her father. She has definitely trauma, and she's going to carry, I suspect she'll always carry the scars of her mother's actions. But I think her story is also, even though there's betrayal and catfishing, I think it also shows real resilience. And I do think that Lauren is resilient. And I think that, hopefully she will be okay.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not just Lauren, too. Owen, these other kids were victimized. That girl, Adriana, who I said was a suspect, you got to watch the documentary. She was really traumatized by being interviewed by the police and people accusing her of this. She was terrified. She says now she's so frightened of police officers. There were so many victims that were impacted. Obviously, the one that I feel the worst for is Lauren, and I hope everything wonderful for her. And if she wants a relationship with her mother, I hope that Kendra does not take that for granted. I hope that she uses every opportunity to make amends and make this right for her daughter.
What a case, Meghan.
This is a heck of a case, right? Okay, so let's talk about whether or not the system got it right. Kendra was prosecuted for her stalking behavior. She was sentenced to a prison term that seems appropriate on the surface. It was something like 19 months. Informally, she lost her family, her reputation, and is now known, I would say, as the worst mother in America.
Yeah.
Some have talked about the fact that they thought she should have been charged with sex crimes because she was sending sexually explicit messages to children. And that is a very interesting point. And I wonder if it was a man, would it have been different? Would he have been charged?
I just wonder why the prosecution didn't. Well, actually, she ended up taking a plea.
She did take a plea, yes.
So it's possible that was included in the initial charges, or no? We would have heard about that.
I don't think that she was ever charged with any type of sex crimes. No, I don't think so.
No, but I'm wondering if that was used during the plea bargaining process.
I don't think she was even charged with it, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't read anything about her being charged with those types of crimes.
Okay.
Maybe it's a stretch, but it is certainly, again, sexually explicit messages to minors.
Yeah.
They were vile. And while no states have standalone laws against catfishing, some states have taken steps to address the related behaviors. So, for example, California's criminal code criminalizes impersonating someone online with intent to harm, intimidate, or defraud. So I think that is definitely aimed at catfishing and the behaviors. Texas has a similar provision, and I really think that we're going to see other states follow, given the great harms that are associated with this behavior.
I don't doubt. I mean, like we talk about in our classes, right? The more technology changes, the more the law has to evolve to keep up.
And it's hard. We know laws are slow. Law is slow and hard to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the end, I think there's still a lot of questions about how to deal with catfishing and the crimes committed via catfishing. But the legal system is definitely playing some catch up, especially now, I think, acknowledging that there is serious emotional, reputational harm. There can be physical harm as well, but I think that was one of the initial thoughts. And it's similar to the thought early on about harassment or stalking. Oh, well, there's not actually a physical act. I think it's only now that the widespread recognition of the harms are coming out.
Well, and a lot of times it escalates to physical violence.
It does. Yeah, it absolutely
Maybe
does.
not in this case. I'm not sure it would have, but in other cases for sure.
The harm in this case, though, is so extreme to me. But without clear statutes, prosecutors often have to rely on adjacent charges. So like fraud, harassment, or identity theft, even if they don't capture the full impact of the crime. All right, well, as digital identities become more central to our lives, lawmakers will need to grapple with how to define and deter manipulative online behavior without overreaching as well into protected speech. This is a tough challenge, but I think one we see on the horizon. Until then, cases like Kendra's serve as cautionary tales, not just about the dangers of catfishing, but about the gaps in our legal and ethical frameworks when it comes to digital harm. Okay, well, that's everything I have for today's episode. And I mean, really interesting case. But Amy, I mean, were you shocked by this as well?
Yes, I think it's extremely shocking, but the more we hear about it, the less shocking it becomes, which is also problematic.
Yes.
I don't want people to become desensitized to these types of cases because they're so horrific.
No, they really are. And I know that you're going to watch the documentary. I encourage you, even though you know the story, the documentary.
I'm definitely going to watch it. It's also one of like the most popular documentaries on Netflix right now. So.
Yeah. And I'm curious to hear what you think and what our supporters think at our next happy hour about Kendra Licari. All righty. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Women and Crime. Women and Crime is written and hosted by Meghan Sachs and Amy Shlosberg. Our producer is James Varga. Script editing is by Abigail Belcastro. Audio editing is by Siler Burr and Jose Alfonso. And music is by Desert Media. If you enjoy the show, please remember to follow and leave a review. You can also support the show through Patreon, where you can get access to additional ad-free content such as exclusive full-length episodes, lectures, a book club, and virtual happy hours with Meghan and Amy. For more information, visit patreon.com/womenandcrime. Sources for today's episode include the documentary Unknown Number, The High School Catfish, People.com, Cosmopolitan.com, and the California Penal Code.